Rural Heritage on RFD TV is brought to you by Rural Heritage Magazine, a bi-monthly magazine featuring articles about farming and logging with draft animal power, small-scale diversified family farming and homesteading, and other aspects of our rich rural heritage. Rural Heritage Magazine, borrowing from yesterday to do the work of today. For subscription information, please call 319-362-3027 or order online at www.ruralheritage.com. For one summer day each year, the Flint Hills Prairie hosts a performance by the renowned Kansas City Symphony. It's a unique celebration of a land and its people.
There's about 4 to 5 million acres of native grass here in the Flint Hills, and it's Tall Grass Prairie. It's the last large remnant of Tall Grass Prairie. It's the largest Tall Grass Prairie in North America. It might be the largest, contiguous remnant of Tall Grass Prairie anywhere in the world. I've not found anything like that bigger anywhere. And it stayed this way because most Tall Grass Prairie got plowed up. This 4 or 5 million acres is about 4% of what there once was. The Tall Grass Prairie went back to Indiana, out to central Kansas, south into Texas, north into Canada. But most of Tall Grass Prairie got plowed up because you get rainfall, 30, 35, 38 inches of rain a year on the average, which is good for crop agriculture. Prairie grass over the millennia, would grow, die in the wintertime, and that built up good, rich black soil. So when the Americans moved out, started moving west, got into Illinois, got into Iowa, that Tall Grass Prairie all got turned upside down. And in eastern Kansas too, central Kansas. What left here was left because two main reasons. One, you got the rocks. You do not plow up rocks. The story is, I've read of a settler going through. He had his plow tied to the side of his wagon. He runs into an Osage Indian. The Indian looks at him, looks at that plow and says, "You won't get that iron thing in the ground here." The other thing, though, that really protected a lot of land here on the broader Flint Hills, not just that corridor of rough, rocky land, but the smoother lands, flatter lands like around it, was because this practice of grazing transient cattle developed very early in statehood. By transient cattle, I mean cattle that are not raised here. The Flint Hills is not cow country. Flint Hills is steer country. There are cow herds here, but if you keep cows, mother cows and babies, you gotta feed them protein and hay in the winter time because they're not gonna survive otherwise. This grass is the best in the world for putting weight on animals quickly and efficiently from, say, late April through mid to late July. Because that grass is just, all that energy from the sun just fills those grass leaves with protein. Steers can easily gain 3.5 pounds a day eating nothing but grass here, which is just an amazing weight gain for, unfertilized native grass. Back in the trail drive days when the Great Plains cattle industry really got started, those Texas Longhorns coming up from Texas, going to the cow towns out of Abilene, out of Ellsworth, Wichita, Newton, then later Dodge City. But these other towns are on the edge of the Tall Grass Prairie, western edge of the Tall Grass Prairie. That started in 1867. Joe McCoy started Abilene. In 1868, a drover from Palo Pinto County, Texas, kept a journal. They moved a big herd of cattle up from there. When they got to the southern Flint Hills, southern Butler County, they split the herd, and half of them they took to Abilene and sold them. The other half they took over into the Fall River country in Greenwood County to put on Flint Hills grass. So at least as early as 1868, maybe before, cattlemen had learned that this grass was a good place for putting cattle.
9 years ago, a bunch of us decided to get together and try to make an event like this happen. Now, we didn't know if we were going to be able to pull it off every year. It was kind of like, this is a very unique idea. Having a pasture, having 7,000 people come out, enjoy a full symphony. The first event we had 100 singers also on stage. So it really is a very unique idea. We thought we'd try it once. We didn't know how it was going to go, but we ended up selling out that first year, and we had it on the national park land that year, and it was a big success. And ever since then, our events have sold out every year, and including this year. We've sold out this year as well. People who come to this event are changed. They come to this event and they say, oh yeah, it's a big event out in the pasture. But once they come and they experience it, they say, there is nothing like this that I've ever been to in my whole life, and I want to come back next year. And the good part is we're not coming back to the same pasture every year. We are moving up and down the Flint Hills. Last year we were at Fort Riley, which was in the middle of the fort, and that was a very unique situation. So every year we have these great opportunities to explore private ranch land or unique places that are only happen because of this organization. It's not like as a private citizen I can just kind of wander out here by myself. This is a one-time, one-day event where people can come in and enjoy this great landscape. This area and this ranch, the most interesting part, I think, is this incredible view and the way that it's so flat and so high, and you think, this is a beautiful vista, but once you get to the edge of this, it's like very awe-inspiring. You just have this great moment. The first time I was here at the Rosalia Ranch, I arrived at a meeting early, and I was like a few minutes early before everybody else, so I was the only person here for as far as I could see in every direction. And it made me realize how lucky we are to come here and enjoy this land for the time that we're here. It's interesting that the education tents fill up. Every seat is filled up. In fact, many of us as board members have said, I wish I had time to go see the educational presentations, but we're busy kind of on a different level making sure the event goes right. But the educational tents are just a wonderful facet of the organization and very well attended. And it also gets people in early, and then the stargazing and the dancing extends it, so everybody's not trying to rush out the one road out, as you know, gets kind of congested at the end.
Well, that over there, you have to have the right setting. There needs to be, as you can see behind me, somewhat of a natural amphitheater. There is a need for the direction of, if you look at the oyster shell bandstand, it needs to be facing a certain direction. You can't just put it anywhere. You think about the audience. You don't want them looking into you want them to see the sunset. You don't want them looking directly into the sun. At the same time, the symphony, many of the musicians have instruments that are millions of dollars, and they can't have sun on the instrument. They can't have, rain. We want to make sure that there's no moisture. So you think about the direction of the rain coming in and the typical rains coming in if we were to have a storm, making sure that all of that is sound too. So finding the right spot isn't just about finding a beautiful place like this. Finding the right spot takes, you have to look at the slope of the land, the lay of the land, and the space. One other thing we always try to keep in mind is the view shed. So if you look around here, you can't see anything man-made. And most people never have an opportunity to experience this. I mean, so that's what's really unique and special about this event. People come out here, they are being welcomed by the Gotch family to this event, and Bill Oates, who is the ranch manager. And without that special invitation that they're given by coming to this event, they would never, ever, ever be able to experience this. And in fact, there's probably very few feet from a human that have trod on this part of the country.
have the best job in the state of Kansas and maybe on the planet. We have a great team. We rely on the generosity of about 600 volunteers, including folks from all walks of life who come back every year to help us. And we do, for the most part, get along because we're all very interested in our mission and very interested in pulling this thing off. And people don't have time to fight about it. We've got a lot of work to do. It's a lot more work than people think, bringing 7,000 people into a pasture to make this thing happen. We contract with the Kansas City Symphony for our event each year. We have a multi-year contract with them. And so they help us develop a music program. We have a committee that works with them to develop the music program that is site-specific because we work on place-based education. And so we've identified some things in the history of this specific place that they will feature with the music program that we help develop. So we have a lot of symphony enthusiasts, we have a lot of prairie enthusiasts, and we have folks who just heard that it was a wonderful event and decided to come. With the prairie folks, it gives them an opportunity to be exposed to symphonic music, and with the folks who come with an interest in the music, it exposes them to the prairie landscape. I'd like to think we've had a huge impact in the last 9 years. We have an education program where we have speakers on a variety of topics who are national experts in their field, and they share a lot of information about why it's important to preserve this landscape. And one of the main things is that it's one of the most threatened landscapes on the planet. And so those are the kinds of things that it's important for people to understand. It's a lot easier to understand that when you're experiencing it and you're not just reading it in a book or hearing a presentation on it. So having a presentation in this open landscape has a great impact. You know, we start out in the fall, and at that time the prairie might be pretty dry, but it's still pretty beautiful, and it was this past fall. We come out and we start deciding where things are going to go, start placing where the tents will be so that we'll be ready. All winter, we hope for the cold to go away so that we can get back on the site. We hope for winter to end. This year we had a lot of snow, so we wait for that to part so that we can get back on the site and continue planning. All spring, we hope the wind dies down so that they can burn the prairie so that we know that it will just be perfect on the day of our event. And June is the peak season for the prairie. And then we hope it rains so that the grass grows tall. And then we hope it stops raining. And this year, it looks like it stopped just in time, but we hope it rains enough that the prairie is pretty and beautiful and tall grass, but it stops soon enough that we can bring 7,000 people onto a pasture without creating a lot of mud and traffic. So it's a long process, and we spend years ahead identifying these locations. We are an organization that has programming year-round. One of the things that we do in the fall is a program called Joyful Noise Camp. It's a collaboration between Symphony and the Flint Hills and Camp Wood YMCA. They're our local YMCA camp in Chase County, and they are the Prairie YMCA in the nation. We offer through that program music education as well as prairie education. And it's a camp that's day long, and you can stay overnight if you like. It's for families of all ages, from young children all the way through adults. We bring in folks who play in orchestras all over the country to come in and teach classes, and anyone who wants to learn an instrument, who's any age, can go. We provide the instruments if they want them, pick up an instrument and learn how to play it. And then it's also in a prairie setting where we have prairie activities as well. And then in the evening, we have a twilight concert. In the last few years, and this year too, we'll have Grammy Award-winning cellist Eugene Friesen, who improvises on the cello. He's called the Cello Man. Improvises on the cello. We'll have an orchestra behind him and just a great time. It's an informal camp, and it gives us an opportunity to really focus on families and kids. And kids love it, and they come back year after year.
Hi everybody, can you hear me okay? All right, well, I'm sorry to have kept all the organizers here in rapt suspense. I was literally just driven in on this golf cart from my parking space, so kudos to Emma and Tim from the Symphony for getting me here. This is the first time I have ever been out here in the prairie. And let me tell you, I can see what everybody was talking about now, how special it is, how truly unique it is to be doing a concert in a setting like this. I'm not aware of any other symphony orchestra in the country that does anything like this. I'm not aware of a celebration of nature and just of our homeland and of our country anywhere else in the country like this. So it's a true privilege to be here and to be involved in this event. I've noticed it's very windy. Have you all noticed that?
Please welcome our speaker, Brian Obermeyer.
Thank you, Rita. Thank you, everyone, for coming. This is my 9th symphony event in the Flint Hills. It's always an awesome experience. The first one was at the Tall Grass Prairie National Preserve in 2006. And every one of them has really been, every site's a little bit different, but there's that commonality that we're on Tall Grass Prairie. And it's really quite a cool place, cool landscape. The Flint Hills represents the last landscape of Tall Grass Prairie in North America. Historically, there was about 170 million acres of Tall Grass Prairie. And in just a few short decades, most of it was plowed under for farming in the 1800s. And only about 4% remains. About two-thirds of what remains is found in the Flint Hills here in Kansas and in the southern extension of the Flint Hills in Oklahoma, which is a lot of times referred to as the Osage Hills, but it's all one landscape. So it's a really special place. The reason that this landscape was not plowed under was because of the underlying limestone and chert or flint rock underneath. Zebulon Pike, who first coined the name Flint Hills when he came through the Flint Hills in 1806, commented about the flint rock and how it made his feet and horses' hooves very, very sore. So it was in places very, very rocky and difficult. But there are some areas in the Flint Hills that could be plowed. But what happened is because so much of this area couldn't be plowed, it brought in a ranching culture that came in and settled this area and began ranching, cattle ranching. And so I know a lot of the old ranchers, the old cowboys, they considered it quite a sin, and they still do today, to put that iron thing in prairie sod. So there was a lot of areas that could still be plowed. This is probably not one of them, but there are areas in the Flint Hills that could be plowed, but fortunately they have not. So it is the last landscape of Tall Grass Prairie. It's a very special place. It's the only place of Tall Grass Prairie, not only because of its scale, 2/3 of what's left here, but also just the intactness, that it is relatively unfragmented, meaning that it's not chopped up with roads and houses and industry. It is wide open prairie in many places. I remember a really interesting story a professor once told me, a botany professor from Iowa, who, by the way, Iowa used to have more tall grass prairie than Kansas. And today they don't have a whole lot left. And most of what they have left are little small remnants, 20-acre, 10-acre, 5-acre patches. And just about every one of them is, there's a big sign up saying Tall Grass Prairie, and they're really proud of those prairie remnants, as they should be. But they're not very big in size. But anyway, this professor told me that he used to take his botany class out to out there to that prairie site and have everybody crouch down low, get on their knees, and they would do this. About a foot off the ground, and it was the only way that you could get a sense, a feel of the openness, the essence of tall grass prairie, that wide open spaces. Here, in many places in the Flint Hills, you can get up on the highest ridge around and stand tippy-toe, and you don't have to use your hands as blinders. And that's one of the things we're trying to preserve out here in the Flint Hills, is keeping it an intact open, and functional landscape of tall grass prairie. There are species out here that really depend on that too. Probably the most famous one, iconic one, is the greater prairie chicken that likes wide open spaces. And when you crowd that bird in, as well as some of the other prairie wildlife, they don't do so well.
So welcome. Delighted to have you here at this uniquely Midwestern event, a mixing of the world-class symphony, the Kansas City Philharmonic. Let's give them a big round of applause. And they're going to fight the wind a little bit, and that mixing with a world-renowned prairie, the Flint Hills of Kansas. Now tonight is a night of feasting. Feast your eyes on nature in its prime. Grasslands as old as the hills, lush with recent rains, and packed with cattle. Now, as the son of a farmer, that's about as pretty as it gets. Then there's the feast of sound, harmony, as you've never heard it, with God providing the acoustics. And finally, there's the feast of friends, new and old, who come here to celebrate and revel in who we are. People of the land, people of the south wind, people of Kansas, in love with our place.
This program is available for purchase. To order your copy, please call 319-362-3027 or visit www.ruralheritage.com. Rural Heritage is a bi-monthly magazine dedicated to draft animal farming and logging, as well as other aspects of our rich rural heritage. It is published by Mishka Press, which also offers a complete line of back-to-the-land books, DVDs, and calendars. Call or write for a catalog or subscription information, or visit our website at www.ruralheritage.com.